In this lecture, we're going to talk about creativity in photography. So one of the things you can do to be creative and create a photo that no one has seen before is something called photo montage. And it's basically, montage is French. And it means multiple photos put together. So obviously the photo on the right over here is not something someone just took. They obviously used Photoshop to, I'm assuming Photoshop, it could have been something else. I'm going to use the term Photoshop to mean any editing software. To put the alley and then the Taj Mahal, that's the Taj Mahal way back here, inside the mouth. In general, photo montages are used to create surrealistic style art. And those of you who have taken courses that talk about surreal art know that basically the surreal artists used Sigmund Freud's interpretation of dreams as the basis for their artwork. And that's why it always feels like when you look at surreal art, it always feels like a dream. It feels like something can only happen in a dream. This is a great way to, create a photo no one's ever seen before. Great example of a photo montage. Someone took a picture of the ski lift in the French or Swiss Alps, I'm not sure which, and then came in and added the kids playing on a tire into the front of the picture. And it makes a really, really clever, creative, interesting shot that causes people to go, hey, wait a minute. Gets their attention. But it's something you could never just go take because there's obviously not children playing in the Swiss Alps on a ski lift like that. Here's another thing that people often do with photo montages. We talked a little bit about David Hockney in a previous lecture, and he did this, right, where you take multiple photos and put them together. And in this case, it's just, it's one person, multiple photos, and these are print photos that they just stacked. And it just created a really interesting, different family portrait. It's different. It's clever. It's, it may not be your thing, but it's definitely clever. It's definitely creative. Here's where two photos have been brought together of a guy with a helmet, and it's trying to show the reflection of what he sees at the same time as you're seeing him. And it's pretty cool. And they did this in Photoshop, working with the blend modes in Photoshop, most likely. I mean, that's how I would do this. And creates a very interesting photo montage. Because this is so busy with all this texture and detail, this large negative space actually works. In general, that much negative space doesn't work. But here, it mostly does. I guess I would say that if this were me, I would have put a background, very faint, light gray image in the background, very, very faint, to create some sort of a horizon back here. So there would be a little bit less negative space and another element to this that stuck out a little bit on this side and more on this side, but that's me. Another photo montage. Excuse me. Another photo montage of stacking photos. It's a woman who took photos of herself from multiple different angles, put them into one. Photo montage of multiple vehicles put together to create a vehicle that doesn't truly exist. Pretty clever. David Hockney again. This is one of his works of someone swimming in a pool. And the beautiful thing about this is it shows motion. It shows the guy swimming. It's very clear that that's what's happening. Okay, another thing you can do is put things in front of your camera lens. Basically, one of the things you can use is plastic, any kind of plastic, leftover plastic from a package. And it creates this very soft, hazy look. And I'll show you. I think that's some examples. Here we go. Okay, so here they used like saran wrap kind of plastic, and they just covered part of the lens, not the whole lens. So some of this is a little bit more hazy at the top where there was more plastic, and on the side, it just creates this very soft, romantic look. And then also this was, backlit. So you have her being softened. You could bring that into Photoshop and work with just a little bit more contrast to just make that a little less flat. I think the photo's beautiful. It's just a little flat for me. But, it's your photo, your call there. This is done with colored plastic. You put colored plastic in front of the lens. And what happens is the lens is gonna focus through what's in front and create this beautiful soft effect. And it makes it look like it's a lens flare when it's maybe partly a little bit of lens flare, but that's plastic. Here's a link that talks about different filters you can use using household items. And here in this photo, what they did was they colored with a marker on plastic and wrapped it around the photo of the girl holding the rose so that it looks like these rose petals. So that was really clever. Now, one of the things you want to notice that they did that works really well is the background is out of focus, but it's also not conflicting with the color. So it's very clear contrast between the background and these faux petals. And that's why it stands out and works so well. If this background were in color or busy, you would lose those petals. You can use any kind of glass to help create, blurred abstract forms like this. And I'll show you what they did. Let's see. Well, okay, I thought not. There's a picture of that somewhere, I thought. If you have any type of glass and you put the glass in front of the camera and shoot through that glass, it can create some really cool, interesting effects. And in this case, light was hitting the glass and created the really interesting effects. It's not my style personally. I think this is too much and it conflicts with this. I don't know. I think it's cool on its own, but this to me, it takes away from the photo, but it's an effect. It's something you can play around with. It's an idea to, work with. Here they put a glass in front of the lens and shot through a glass, and that's why it created this really interesting effect. And then this is just using the building. We talked about this in a previous lecture where you can go up to a building and use this is the building inside. You can see there's some inside of the building, but it's a glass vestibule and they're shooting through that, and the sun was coming from this direction. So where the sun hit the door, it created this beautiful prism on the ground. And created this really interesting photo too, because now you've got this reflection happening and you could see some people through here, and just kind of cool. So shooting through glass is another way to create some interesting effects. You want to deliberately unfocus on lights to create bokeh. And we've talked about this a little bit. And that's bokeh. And so what happened is they focused back here using a very large aperture on their camera. And I know we're not working with that here, but just know all your cell phones have by default a very large aperture. So if you focus on back here, it will automatically do this. And in some pictures, it works really well to use bokeh as long as you have something in focus or something that's recognizable as your subject. Just to have if we cut this off, you can't see my hand in front of this, but if you cut this off and you had nothing but the dots, it wouldn't make a good picture. You need a subject. You need a focal point. And this is what makes all this so great. And same here, you have this in focus so that as this gets out of focus and turns into bokeh, it becomes really cool and interesting. Now, obviously, this is completely out of focus and violates what I just said. However, the other part that I said was that it needs to be recognizable. And this is very clearly recognizable as a street. This is a car's headlights right here coming at you. These are people, the outline of people on a sidewalk at night. And so you can look at this and your brain begins to know or put context to the photo, and it works in that case. Photographs scenes through visible handheld lenses. This is exactly like before, shooting through glass, but you can actually use smaller lenses like this. In this picture, you can see she's holding up. This is a screw-on lens to the front of a DSLR lens, and you can screw it on to the lens, the filter, and take it off and hold it up like this, and you see everything's upside down. But it's really cool. It creates a really cool effect. You can shoot into glass balls like this guy's doing. This is just showing you the effect of shooting into an object. And you see in the background, this is actually inverted. When he shot this, the image was upside down, so he turned the image the other way around and created that. Pretty cool. This is somebody shooting through a glass. They've held up the glass and they're shooting at a candle. And the light creates the reflection on the inside of the glass that creates that really interesting effect. Also shooting through a colored glass. This looks like a vase maybe, and they're just shooting through, and this is really cool what it does. The distortion of the glass. Computer in the background, obviously you can see, but colored glass creates some really cool effects. I hate when it does this to my photos, and I don't know why it does it. You can use mirrors, and I wish y'all could see this because it's really cool. This is done using mirrors. This is done using a kaleidoscope where you have a tunnel. It has, in this case, let's see, I think it has 1, 2, 3 mirrors, and then this little part here is possibly another mirror, or no, it's dark because you can see the dark. It's what's holding it together, and so you're shooting the camera through the tube or tunnel of mirrors and looking at this subject, and then it creates this really cool reflection through the kaleidoscope. Right? It doesn't have the little glass in the kaleidoscope. You could get a kaleidoscope and take off the end that has all the little glitter pieces in it and use that. Or you could take strips of mirror and put them together with rubber bands. You got to be really careful you don't cut yourself though. And then wrap it. And that will allow you to create these really cool effects. So you can use mirrors in different ways to get very, very cool shots. And this one is also done with mirrors to create this. It looks sort of like this very surreal, abstract, dizzy kind of scene. Something out of a Hitchcock thriller. Okay, we're going to stop here and continue in the next video.